This is Active Learning by Dr. Crystal Hill Chapman and Dr. Juliet Hahn. This part is by Juliet Hahn. There's another portion by Crystal Hill Chapman in a separate presentation. The objective of this presentation is to answer the question, online classes require a lot of reading due to their nature. Students not only read the textbook, but also supplemental materials on the course website or other online sources. How will you ensure that students actively learn in your class? This question answered by Juliet. Question number 2, how can you make content more interactive and engaging for your students? Answered by Crystal. And question number 3, what active learning activities do you anticipate in your online course? Or what active learning examples in an online environment can you share with us? Provide at least 2 examples, answered by both Crystal and Juliet. So what is active learning? If you ask what's active learning, you could also ask what's passive learning in contrast. Passive learning is what almost all professors do to teach students in a normal class. Student sits in the class, listens to a lecture. The person stands up in front of the room and tells students what they need to learn. Students sit there and just take notes. They don't do pretty much anything else except just sit there and take notes. So what's active learning? Active learning is student-centered learning, actively engages students to learn. Students read, write, analyze, synthesize, solve problems, evaluate. And so the students are actually doing a lot more activity. They're not just sitting there taking notes. The disadvantage of active learning is that a lot of active learning activities take up a lot of time. So you have to be a little bit careful about doing active learning in a face-to-face class, because you can cover a lot more course content by straight lecturing. But the advantage of active learning is that at the expense of time, you are able to have students learn better. They learn deeper, and so you lose time, but you get better learning. How is active learning carried out in face-to-face classes? Well, there are several ways that you can carry out active learning. You can have problem-based learning, where you present the problem to the class, and the class either in groups or individually solves the problem. You can do a 1-minute paper, where you ask students to write a summary of the important concepts that they learned. So the idea is that the students are supposed to synthesize what they learned during the course of the class. They summarize, they think about what they learned, and they write something and they turn it in. You can do class games, so you can have chemistry Jeopardy, you can have chemistry crossword puzzles, and so on. I'm a chemist, so I've never actually done chemistry Jeopardy, but you could. In the sciences, labs can also be considered to be active learning exercises if they're handled the correct way. So there are many ways that you can carry out active learning. How is active learning different from passive learning? So in passive learning, you're just basically taking notes. In the various disciplines, in chemistry, for instance, you can pose a word problem, have the students answer the questions by applying the rules that you've learned. You can have the students answer the problems by either using clickers or using a handout that they turn in. In nursing, you can have clinical practice. You can have discussion of applying concepts to patient care. In education, you can have discussions. The students can actually teach course content, so they're actually using what they learned about how to teach and teaching those concepts. In history and politics, students can synthesize and relate the concepts that they learned to current events. In sociology and psychology, they can analyze social relationships to learn concepts. Students can analyze and discuss applying concepts to case study questions. So the basic idea here is you're not just taking notes, you are applying what you learned, You are synthesizing what you learned. The students in front of you are learning and showing what they learned right in front of you and learning as they're doing it. I just want to point out that I only know about chemistry, so if I had some ignorant comments about some of the other disciplines, please forgive me. So how do you do face-to-face active learning? There are several ways that you can do this. So one of the things that I've always done is I have icebreakers. This is a photo session and interest session at the beginning of the semester in which I take photos of the students and the students get to introduce themselves. When you have a fairly large class, it's difficult for individuals to get up and introduce themselves individually, but what I do is I have the students introduce themselves by having them raise their hands. So I ask questions like, what's your major? Why are you taking this course? What do you hope to gain by taking this course? And things like that. So what the icebreaker does is it gets the students in the mood to learn. It gets the students sort of in a partying mood. They're happy to be in class. And also it gets the students more likely to ask questions, that's more interactive, and so on. The second thing I do is I do clicker questions. The advantage of clicker questions is for one, it is immediate feedback. I ask a question, I cover a material, and then I ask a clicker question about the material that I've just covered. From that, I can tell whether the students learned the material or not. The students know what it is that I'm trying to have them learn, because they're asked a question about what they should be learning out of what all the topics that I've just covered. There's a nice little feedback cycle where the students learn things and I learn things. And then it also does a very important thing. This is the attendance question to a face-to-face class. I think studies have shown that the greatest indicator of student failure is non-attendance. Clicker questions, just by forcing students to ask a question during a class, contributes to the attendance issue and is a great help in making sure that to ensure student success. The other thing you can do is you can do group work. What you do is you organize students in groups, have students work on a handout as a group, maybe 5 people per group, and have students answer the questions. They can either present the answers by turning in individual papers, or they can have a group leader answer the question and present to the class. Another thing you can do is you can lead the class in a discussion. You call on a student to contribute to the discussion. The only problem is in chemistry, there's not really a whole lot of subjective things that you can use for discussion, so it doesn't really work all that well for chemistry. The other thing you can do is you can do formative assessments. These are low point value things that you can do to ensure that the students are keeping on track. So kinds of formative assessments that you can do are weekly quizzes. You can assign homework problems. People are having to study as they go along. So all of this is designed to sort of have the students learning, but they're learning in front of you, and they're not just sitting there taking notes. They're actually producing things for you as you're watching them, and they're learning just as you're watching them do it. How can you do online active learning? I've actually never taught an online class, but I think I can translate some of my face-to-face activities to online work. So you can have class attendance daily quizzes. You can give formative assessment daily one-question quizzes. So these are sort of designed to duplicate the clicker questions that you have. So the idea is you can have students do 3 daily quizzes per week. So this is as if they're actually attending class 3 times a week. I think the greatest problem that you would have in an online teaching environment is that there's a possibility that students can do absolutely nothing. Even in face-to-face classes, we have this problem of the student who does absolutely nothing. I think the problem would be even greater in an online format because you don't even have to see them. They don't even have to show up to class. So I can imagine students doing absolutely nothing, learning absolutely nothing, and then just by default flunking the class. By having students do these daily quizzes, it makes it much more likely that they'll keep on track. I think the difficulty is if you're taking an online class and you don't have to turn anything in, it's very tempting to do absolutely nothing. And daily quizzes would eliminate that possibility. You can also require discussion session attendance. You can force students to ask questions about the course. The difficulty with discussion sessions, if you have a fairly large group of people, is it's very time consuming for the person who's teaching the class to respond to discussion questions and read through everything. I think a way to do this in a fairly large class is to have the students answer questions amongst themselves, and then the instructor of the course jumping in occasionally and making sure that the students aren't telling each other the wrong answers. So this is actually a way for the students to actively learn, because students who are answering questions learn by answering the question. Students who are getting their questions answered are getting individual attention from their classmates, and then it saves a little bit of time for the person teaching the class because they don't have to answer every single last question that every single student is asking about the course content. Another way to keep active learning is to have formative assessments. And in my face-to-face classes, I give weekly or about weekly quizzes on course content, and I also give online homework. I think this would translate very well to an online format. My quizzes are, however, not multiple choice, which are not very easy to grade in an online format. But I think there's a big difference in learning for a class like general chemistry between multiple choice quizzes and multiple choice exams and quizzes that are fill in the blank and word problems. So I think I'll keep the word problems and fill in the blank type of quizzes, but I think it would be possible to translate this to an online kind of quiz. In conclusion, active learning is student-centered. I believe active learning is more important in online courses than in face-to-face interactions because there is the possibility of total non-participation, much more than in a face-to-face class. In a face-to-face class, students have to show up and meet you. In an online class, they don't have to do anything to see you. So there's a possibility that they'll do absolutely nothing. If you employ some of these active learning methods, I think it would make it much more likely that the students will actually learn much better in an online format than even in a face-to-face format. Examples of possible online active learning techniques is simulated clicker questions with daily attendance one-question quizzes. So these would be one-question multiple choice questions, very fast. You could also have weekly formative assessments. So these would be, at least for my general chemistry kind of classes, weekly quizzes, multiple choice, word problems, but fairly short, 1 page. Discussion board participation also as a part of the formative assessment. Students can answer each other's questions. The person teaching the class can make sure that the students are answering the questions correctly by jumping in once in a while and checking on students. and of course online homework, which I've also assigned in face-to-face classes. Thank you for viewing this presentation, and please answer the following participation question. So this would be kind of the question that I would ask for a clicker, daily clicker kind of question. So the question is, active learning is a touchy-feely, wishy-washy term invented by some wafflers in the 90s to waste class time. B, has been shown to quantitatively increase learning. C, is student-centered, forces student participation. Or D, B and C are correct and A is true according to some. Thank you for listening, and happy online teaching.